These are the 3 essential ideas all parents need to help a child with anxiety, and we'll go over them in detail in this video. And whether you're just starting to look for help or already working through behavioral therapy, these ideas will help you when it feels like nothing's working. As a child psychologist specializing in anxiety and ADHD, I can tell you that there isn't an easy, instant solution for child anxiety. And I believe many behavioral therapies or advice are missing some important ideas. But there are actions parents have control over that can make all the difference. So, drawing on the content in my Relationships First masterclasses, I'm going to share with you 3 essential steps I would take if I had to help my child with anxiety. Make sure to watch this through because I'll also talk about how to avoid the one thing that 90% of parents of anxious kids do, which can actually make anxiety worse. I'm sharing this plan with you today because I believe that all families deserve access to quality information and help, especially when it comes to child anxiety and ADHD. It's the same reason why I started Child Behavior Clinic and my online masterclass series. So don't be afraid to look through all of my resources if you need more support or if you're not sure what's next. And if you find this video helpful, please share it with family and friends to help them too. What do you think is one of the hardest lessons about being a parent? To me, the hardest lesson has been accepting how little I have control over my kids' lives. And I think this is something that many parents will relate to. No matter how much we influence our kids' lives, there are things we just can't control, like whether they stay in their bed overnight or develop picky eating habits or how they behave at school. Anxiety is no different. Parents don't have control over whether a child develops anxiety or whether they're willing to take the steps to get better. It can be heart-wrenching to watch a child struggle, wishing you could wave a magic wand and make it all better. But the good news is there are things we can control and actions we can take to help them. First, it's important to understand what anxiety looks like in children and when it becomes a problem. Anxiety is a normal emotion that we all experience from time to time, and it signals our nervous system that something might be dangerous. It's like a threat detection system that prepares us to take action or freeze. It causes that fight or flight response that was designed to protect us and keep us safe. Some anxiety lets us know when something doesn't feel right, or that something is really important to us, or when we're hesitant about something new. A little anxiety can motivate us to study for a test, seek shelter during a bad storm, or keep a watchful eye on our kids in the pool. A little anxiety is normal as kids develop and go through different stages and experiences for the first time. For example, for babies and toddlers, it's common to have fears about strangers, separating from caregivers, and new or unpredictable things. For preschoolers, fears of pretend things like imaginary characters or monsters and fears of the dark are common. Elementary and middle schoolers tend to be afraid of more real-life situations like performing in front of others, making friends, and the health of themselves and their friends or family. And then it's common for teenagers to have more generalized worries about relationships or rejection or the future. All of these worries map on to what's going on in children's brains and in their social and emotional development at the time. Essentially, anxiety is a part of all of our lives, and it's a good thing when it motivates us to take action or protects us from real danger. But when the anxiety alarm goes off too often or too intensely, perceiving situations as dangerous when, in fact, they're not, we call it a false alarm. False alarms can feel horrible and cause fear, just like when we're in real danger, even if we're totally safe. Maybe the false alarms are so bad we can't sleep or go to work or can't parent how we'd like. Or our kids have trouble going to school or being with friends or just having fun. When the anxiety and false alarms interfere like this, consistently getting in the way of relationships or school or work or personal growth over a few months, that's when anxiety has become a problem. Any type of anxiety typically has 3 parts, and this might sound familiar if you've downloaded my coping skills guide. The 3 parts are what you're thinking, what you're doing, and your body's physical reactions. And this is true whether you're a grown-up or a kid. All of these are part of anxiety. What we think, things like, Mom will get into an accident and get hurt, or everyone will laugh and think I'm stupid. what we do, like beg mom not to leave or avoid talking during class, and our body's reactions, like a racing heart or an upset stomach. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short, aims to work on and treat each of these three parts of anxiety. So it makes sense that it's been the gold standard treatment for anxiety, both for adults and for kids. While CBT can be incredibly helpful for many kids and families, I think there is one major thing that it fails to address that's really important for kids with anxiety. And we can see this really important thing just by looking at examples of other mammals and throughout history. You may have heard about one of the famous, although pretty unethical, examples in psychology: Harry Harlow's experiments with rhesus monkeys. He separated baby monkeys from their mothers and put them with a surrogate mother, a wire monkey with a bottle for feeding and a wire monkey covered in soft terry cloth that didn't have any food. And basically the monkeys just went to the wire mother for feeding and stayed with the cloth mother at all other times. Then they also put the monkeys in an unfamiliar situation, either with the cloth mother or alone. When the cloth mother wasn't there, the monkeys froze or rocked or cried. But when she was there, they felt more free to explore and were calmer. Basically, the mother's comforting presence influenced their fear alarm system. And this is the thing that's really important to understand about child anxiety. Kids are biologically wired to seek protection and comfort in their caregivers. There's a social component to kids' fears that involve their caregivers. And this is especially evident when we're talking about separation anxiety, where the core fear is all about the relationship, that something bad will happen to them or their parents that will cause permanent separation. Parents are also wired to be more attuned to their kids' fear cues, and we have to take this into account when we address problems with anxiety in kids. When we think about biological wiring between parents and their kids, and this relational component to anxiety for kids, it's easier to understand why the traditional CBT model might be incomplete. It's missing a piece about what to do about anxiety that's influenced by the biological wiring and the interactions between kids and their parents. A treatment called Supportive Parenting for Anxious Emotions, or SPACE, developed by Ellie Leibowitz, has gained more research support in the last few years. It's aimed at addressing child anxiety through a parent-only intervention. And this leads me to the other issue with CBT for kids. It requires them to think differently and do things differently. They need to learn different skills to handle the anxiety more adaptively, which of course is super helpful, but what if kids don't want to do that? How can parents help their kids then? This is where I think we need to focus our attention on a different triangle. This is something I've come up with while working with families, and I think it complements well most child anxiety therapies. It's what I would do if I had to help my kids with anxiety. My triangle incorporates what we've learned from both CBT and SPACE and gives parents a 3-part plan about how to help their child with anxiety. The 3-part plan for dealing with child anxiety includes 1, making supportive statements that express empathy and confidence in the child's ability to handle their anxiety. 2, creating a plan with the child that involves talking about the situation and setting expectations to help them feel prepared. And 3, gradually reducing accommodations that reinforce the child's anxiety and interfere with personal boundaries. I'll tell you more about each of these 3 parts next. The first part of the framework goes back to something that we can learn from the monkey experiments. Kids need to feel comfort and security to be able to explore and try new things and conquer fears. Kids need their parents to be the supportive cloth monkey. One of the best ways for parents to do this is by how they talk about the anxiety. Anxious kids, well, all kids and grown-ups really, need people who show understanding about how they're feeling and what they're going through. They need others to see their fears and feelings as real. Only then will they be able to accept the feelings themselves, which they need to do first, to be able to manage and work through them. So how do you do this? You have to put yourself in your child's shoes. You have to try to see things through their eyes. Here's how. Find something about the situation or fears that make sense to you, even if it's only a small piece you can understand. and then say that out loud before you say or do anything else. This might be as simple as, you're feeling anxious, or you're worried right now, or even just, I see this is hard for you right now. Essentially, accept your child for where they are with their emotions in that moment. Their anxiety alarm, even if it's a false one, feels real to them. You can take these statements one step further and describe more specifically what you see. You're anxious about staying all night at the sleepover, or you're worried about falling asleep when I'm not with you, or I see right now it's hard to say goodbye for school. You can also tell your child why their feelings make sense to you. It makes sense that you're anxious about the sleepover because you've never slept away from home before. Or, I know it's hard to say goodbye because we spent so much time together every morning this summer. It's different to go somewhere without me. These validating and empathic statements are necessary, and they're not all you need to show your support. You want to pair the empathy with a statement about your belief in your child to handle their anxiety, the confidence that the presence of the cloth monkey gave the baby monkey, the confidence that they can get through it. Say, I know you'll get through it, or, and I know you're strong and can handle it, or just, I know you'll be okay. Remember, for anxious kids, they often have that overactive fear alarm system, and when it goes off, it's telling them they can't handle something. You need to tell them that you believe the opposite of that alarm, that you know they'll make it through the tough feelings. These two pieces, the statement of empathy and the statement of confidence, are equally important. You need both to communicate that you are the supportive parent they need. This is the first part of the 3-part plan, to learn and practice making supportive statements frequently and at the first sign of anxiety. Sometimes getting these statements right can be tricky, so I want to give you some more examples. But before I do this, if you're finding this video helpful so far, be sure to tap the like button and subscribe to let me know. This way, it can spread to more families who need it and support the many hours and effort it takes me to keep making videos like this. So these statements show the difference between statements that are not really supportive and those that truly show support. Practice and see if you can guess which is which. I know, this is hard for everyone. This starts out okay as an empathic statement, but it's really missing the part about the child specifically. We want to let them know that we see them where they are. To make it more accepting of them, a simple change to, I know this can be hard for you, can make all the difference. It's also missing the second piece, the confidence. So you could add, I know this is hard for you, and I know you'll get through it. You've done it before, you should be able to do this. I know this one might look like showing confidence at first, but the second part, the you should be able to do this, doesn't directly communicate your confidence in them. It's also a little bit shaming with the should in there. Instead, you could change it to, I've seen you handle it before, and I know you'll be able to handle it again. This better shows that you believe in their abilities. And last example, it makes sense that you're nervous right now, but we're right here to help you. This is validating and communicating your presence with, we're here to help. It doesn't fully acknowledge that the child has the skills to get through it. Changing the second part to something like, and I know you'll be okay, would be better at showing your confidence in them. It's important to make sure your relationship with your child is strong and supportive, the kind of relationship they want and need to handle their anxiety. Of course, there's a lot more you can do and say to develop this kind of relationship. This is why I cover this in detail in my child anxiety masterclasses. See childbehaviorclinic.com/masterclasses for more on how to have that close and connected relationship that is truly their safe space and can also help them with their anxiety. The next part of the plan goes back to the traditional CBT model. Sometimes kids are truly lacking the skills or experience or perspective to move through their anxiety. We want to make sure that kids understand what to do and what a situation will be like before throwing them into the deep end and just expecting them to swim. But how do you do this if your child doesn't want to practice something? Talk about it. Let them know the details of what to expect and the expectations of their behavior for the situation. Essentially, create a plan with them about how to handle what's bothering them even if they can't or aren't willing to act on it. For example, if they're going to a sleepover, talk through what they'll do there, who they'll be with, and what they can do if they feel worried. Or if we're talking about starting a new school, take them to see the classroom and meet the teacher, maybe even a few classmates, ahead of the first day. Make a plan for how you'll say goodbye and what they can do when they feel anxious. By doing these things, you're already helping them to have more accurate expectations and thoughts, and you're also giving them ideas about what else they can do in the situation, even if they don't do anything differently or feel any less anxious. To see an example for a specific situation, like this question I got from a parent in my separation anxiety class, visit the masterclass link. The third part of the plan directly relates back to the relational component of child anxiety, the fact that children biologically depend on their parents, and that parents are wired to be more attuned to their child's fear alarm system. Because of this parent-child wiring, child anxiety can get worse, stay the same, or get better, depending on what happens between the parent and the child. A parent's behavior and responses influence that interaction and in turn the anxiety. This brings me to the thing that over 90% of parents of anxious kids do that can actually make anxiety worse in the long run. This thing can look like it relieves kids' anxiety in the short term, so it makes sense that so many parents do it. Even I do it sometimes. So what do you think it is? Let me walk you through an example. Let's say your child has trouble falling asleep alone in their own bed, so they ask you to stay until they fall asleep. It seems simple enough, so you agree and they fall asleep without much trouble. Their anxiety about being alone goes down and they feel pretty instant relief. But what happens the next time they need to go to bed? They've developed the belief that they need their parent near them to fall asleep. So they get anxious again at bedtime and the anxiety is still high. So the parent stays and the anxiety just gets maintained because the child doesn't have opportunities to work through that anxiety and see that they can handle it. What I'm describing, this super common thing that 90% of parents of anxious kids do, is called accommodation. It's a parent's behavior that reduces a child's anxiety in the moment, but also prevents the child from doing or facing a thing themselves. It's really important to understand that this last part of the plan has nothing to do with making a child face their fear, and everything to do with how you, the parent, behave when they're anxious. So the last part of this plan is to work on gradually reducing your accommodation of their anxiety, changing the trajectory of the pattern between parents and kids when kids are anxious. So how do you do this? You need to first recognize the accommodations. You can start to create a list of accommodations by asking yourself a few questions. Did you always do this for your child, or have you done it this way with their siblings? Is this something you wish you didn't have to do? If your child were not anxious, would you still be doing this? If you stopped doing it, how would your child react? A lot of times, family accommodations of anxiety interfere in some way with personal boundaries too. They get in the way of a parent's personal time, space, actions, and feelings. Has your personal space shrunk because of your child's anxiety? Has your time been taken over by it? Are you doing more and more things for your child that they could do for themselves? Do you feel anxious when your child gets anxious? My online masterclass walks you through a checklist of these questions with examples to help you sort it out. Here are some of those examples. Let's say a child gets really anxious if mom is not waiting at the door at school pickup. So mom accommodates by leaving work early so she can be the first one in the pickup line every day. Or let's say a child has a meltdown if they can't see mom. So mom accommodates and sits inside the gym during basketball practice instead of playing with the younger sister on the playground outside. A child has trouble asking their teacher questions, so dad emails the teacher nightly with his kids' questions. These are all things that may reduce a child's anxiety in the moment, and they also maintain the child's anxiety in the long run because the child doesn't have any opportunities to try it on their own or see if they can handle it. The parents are stepping in and changing their behavior in order to relieve the anxiety in the short term. The cool thing is, just by changing a parent's response to something that doesn't accommodate the child's anxiety, we can better help their fears in the long term. But if you're still wondering if something you're doing is helping or if it's really an accommodation, this is when I think it's important to ask the question, does what you're doing ultimately help your child get closer to their goal or help them face their fear? If not, it's probably an accommodation. What do I mean with this? Here's some of the previous examples, but with a slight difference. Like in that example with the mom who has to be the first in the pickup line, maybe she does that, but then starts to let a car or two go in front of her, so her child can still see her, but she's not the first car and they have to wait a bit. Or maybe she sends her child a text message when she leaves work so they know she's on her way. Or maybe with the mom who waits within eyesight in the basketball gym, maybe she begins standing in the back doorway, still visible when the child looks around the gym, but not in immediate eyesight. There are two main points with these examples. First, they show movement toward reducing accommodation. They help the child move closer to the goal of not doing something in a certain way because the anxiety tells them to. And second, they are actions the parent is taking. The parent is waiting in a different spot, one that does not reinforce the child's same fears. The parent is changing their behavior in order to change the dynamic and in turn the anxiety. So how do you begin reducing your accommodations? Pick one thing that you're going to do differently or stop doing altogether. Think about if that one thing will be manageable or if you need to break it down into smaller steps. Maybe consider how often the accommodation happens. Make sure to pick something that happens regularly, otherwise you won't give yourself and your child enough of a chance to practice doing something differently. On the other hand, it may be too difficult to start with something that's happening many times throughout the day. If you can't be successful with it, it may derail your efforts. Start with just one accommodation at a time. When your child has gotten used to that, add another, and then another. In my Child Anxiety Masterclass, there's a journal feature to keep track of your accommodations and get individual feedback to help you create the best plan for you and your family. When you've picked the accommodation you want to reduce, first tell your child about the change at a calm moment. Begin with a supportive statement about the problem. Acknowledge that accommodation is not the solution. Explain the new plan and exactly what you'll be doing differently. Make a supportive statement about the plan and end on a positive note. For example, I know you feel anxious if you can't see me right away during basketball practice. I realize though that if I'm sitting on the bench in the first row, it doesn't help you see that you'll be okay, even if I'm not right there. As your mom, it's my job to help you with things that are tough. So from now on, I'm going to stand in the back doorway to watch your practice. I know this will be hard at first, and I know you'll get through it. I love you. Sometimes when you've decided to do something differently, kids can have a really hard time with the change. They might have reactions you didn't expect or have behaviors that are really challenging in response. This is where it's really important to take care of yourself and your own reactions because that affects kids too. It's also important to understand what a child's true fear really is, what they believe is their worst case scenario. It's not always what it seems on the surface, and that can influence your parenting plan too. My Child Anxiety Masterclass shows you exactly how to manage these situations, and because I know things are not a one-size-fits-all, every family and child is different, I've made sure my classes include options to get more support for your specific situation. So head to childbehaviorclinic.com/masterclasses and check out everything available. I believe that all families deserve access to quality mental health resources, and comments like this one are part of why I do this. So I hope you check out the masterclass, and I'll see you there.